Hi, hello, hi. The first time I opened beetleball, which is the best class-based Dung beetle soccer game on the market, my first instinct was to find the fastest characters so that I could main them. That's my usual protocol. I played Scout in TF2, Cool Kid and Forsaken, and I've always been enamored with Sonic. Looking over it, I landed on Firefly, but the true answer was right under my nose. It was the first beetle you'll ever see in the game. Like most beetles, Dung is deceptively complicated, with a moveset that does a lot more than you might think. Neither of her abilities seem too outstanding, but with proper usage and a little tech, she zooms past the competition. If I haven't made it clear, Dung is the fastest beetle. She trades the flexibility and disruption of something like the Firefly in order to blitz across the map. Now just so I don't veer off and start talking about nothing, I'll explain each of these, albeit a little arbitrary stats from best to worst. Mobility. Have I made this one clear? My friend described Dung as the ladybug of the ground, which I find pretty accurate. If you have to grab a ball, a precise dash will get it to you, and you'll have a candy escape afterward if you're confident you can keep it. Both abilities being focused on movement should make it obvious. Dung is great in this aspect. The off ball is a second horizontal dash, and the on ball makes you go faster. While these are alright on paper, they're very powerful if you know how and when to use them. If you use your on ball while walking forward with a gold, you'll go a little faster, but you can go way faster if you drop the ball and dash into it. Wait, that wasn't very fast. How are they doing that? This is the bread and butter of Dung. Your best friend, the Flutter Dash. So how do you get that much free speed? First, you jump. Now don't let go of the spacebar because you'll need the flutter mechanic. Between when you first jump and when the flutter starts, use your off ball, and when the flutter goes off, you'll get a second burst of speed. I'll go into the nitty gritty of what you do afterward later, since I want to talk about the other things first. When I wasn't very good at the game, I thought Dung wasn't flexible at all. But with a bit of tech, or just normal Dung abilities if you're lame, you can get from wherever you are to a better position very quickly. That's what I meant by flexibility, by the way. Your ability to switch between attacking and defending, and vice versa. Sure, you have to get your claws directly to the ball since it doesn't have a laser, or a bomb, or a spike wall, or a Jeff the Shark ult. But if you react quickly enough, you can outrun most beetles in most scenarios. Also keep in mind that you have to be good at snatching the ball once you get there. Oh, about that. Disruption. This is your ability to keep the ball out of enemies' hands and blow up whatever setup they have going on. Dung is good at stealing, but that's as far as it can go. The off ball works very well for air challenging, assuming your enemy isn't already higher than you can go. If they aren't, you can time your dash into them and get an easy steal. The ground is even better because if you do it right, you can flutter dash into them and zoom off with even more speed. Depending on if there's anyone to stop you, that steal will decide the match. If there is though, you've run into the Dung Beetle's biggest fear. One guy. At the goal. Dung has a lot of speed tech and you can do all of it that you want, but none of it actually matters if you can't score. She only has the options every other beetle has. Juke or regrab. To get good at Dung Beetle, you need to get good at those. Particularly regrabbing, because it's more consistent and can be comboed nicely with the stealing I mentioned earlier. Last and least, defense. Yeah, Dung Beetle doesn't have much here. Sure, you could dash into the ball and steal it, but if you miss that, your goal is empty. You're better off saving the dash in case you whiff a headbutt. Dung is just a little better at defense than John Beetle, so I would suggest leaving the goal and challenging whoever has the ball instead. If you're good enough, you should be able to save from anyone, or at least slow them down. The only exception to this is if they're too high for you to catch with just headbutting up. So that's a relatively quick overview of the beetle. Now I can go ahead and move on to the... You remember Flutter Tech? You better, because I'm gonna keep bashing it into your skull. So what do you do after? If you're just using it to get to your goal or reposition, nothing. But you can also use it to go faster with your own ball. You want to drop the ball while moving fastish, so it moves in front of you. Then do the tech. A mistake I see a lot of inexperienced Dung players make is taking a couple seconds to set up a grab with the Flutter Dash. You shouldn't need to wait at all if you're doing it right. See, you don't actually have to be far away to grab. If you just time when you click correctly, your body will push the ball by itself and you'll get it anyway. Assuming nothing's gone wrong, you'll keep all of the speed you gained from your flutter. It takes about a second to do this, and you'll have to drop the ball to use the off ball. So don't do it unless no one is contesting or you're convinced they won't be able to win the regrab off you. Be aware, you don't always want to use your off ball for a Flutter Dash. If you're midair, it is impossible to flutter, so dropping the ball and dashing it into is your only option. That doesn't make it a bad option though. It's good for keeping it away from your opponents, and if you momentum transfer after, you'll get comparable speeds. I've given a lot of love to the off ball, but not a lot to the on ball. This has two main uses. It can be a juke, or it can multiply your speed. If you've just used momentum transfer or Flutter Dash into the ball, you should decide whether you want to juke the goalie, and if you don't, on ball to increase the speed you just got further. If you have decided to juke the goalie, start holding left or right and use your on ball once you think you're in a good spot to make them whiff. Remember, none of Dung's cooldowns are particularly long, so don't be afraid to use them. You can throw the ball off an edge and time a Flutter Dash into it. For Dungus, you can throw a ball past anything bouncy and Flutter Dash through to catch it again. For style points, you can juggle the ball in your head and dash grab into it. Sometimes it's better to headbutt the ball away than Flutter Dash into it than to just grab it. Some of the map terrain allows you to translate horizontal momentum into some pretty nice vertical momentum. Flutter Dashing into a slope lets you do a sort of trim. Okay, last section. Being ground-based, Dung might be the most map-dependent beetle. The worst map is, by far, Egypt. Dung Beetle struggles a lot with the elevated goal, as it has no vertical mobility. If you can learn to trimp on the pyramids though, you have a lot more potential. Beach seems similar, but it's really the best Dung map in the game. Not only is it flat, but it's large, so your reversal potential is much higher. Even better, the goal isn't blocked. The only issue with this map is that there's no fungus to do Dungus off of. Snowman is like Beach, but slightly worse since it's a lot less flat and it's smaller. You wouldn't think Picnic is good for Dung, but that isn't necessarily true. The terrain allows you to bounce up, and you can do some nice jumps with the slopes. This map also includes the most useful Dungus in the game. Gamba is the opposite. Being smaller and flatter, the Dungus on this map isn't very good, but the terrain is helpful. Because of the dice blocking the goal, your best chance to score is coming up from the top platform. Critter is not good for Dung, but it isn't the worst. Purple Dungus is funny, but it sucks, and the bumpy terrain is not as helpful as it is on Picnic. Well, I think that's about it for this beautiful, wonderful beetle. This game's only fun when you're being creative, so don't follow my word of the book. Go play beetleball. Bye!